Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Rumour Review with Odds Changer. The international transfer window has now closed, but there were still plenty of deals done and money spent this summer despite the financial problems affecting clubs in the wake of the coronavirus crisis. Premier League clubs spent £1.2 billion in this transfer window, £158 million down from last year. But again, it was the most spent throughout the rest of the European leagues. I'm delighted to be joined by the chief sports reporter for the Sunday Mirror and the Sunday People, Tom Hopkinson, to review transfer deadline day and just a general review of the transfer window. Hello, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Pete. Pleasure. It was not quite the entertaining day we were all hoping for, was it? Yet again, a bit of a damp squib, but still plenty to talk about. Still one or two deals went through that I know will be of interest to people.
Yeah, it was a bit underwhelming, as you said, Tom, the deadline day. I think Sky are running out of ideas with it right now. If you're watching Sky Sports News on transfer deadline day, I think transfer window is probably best viewed on Twitter these days, the way it's going out and everything else. But yeah, like you said, there was a few deals that happened. I think 12 deals in the Premier League in total. So there's a few movers and shakers, Man United being one of the busiest clubs with 4 new signings. But the biggest signing of deadline day was Thomas Partey at Arsenal. £45 million, a big signing for Arsenal, who have had a good transfer window, I think it's fair to say. But yeah, it's caused a bit of uproar, I think, with Atletico Madrid, this move, coming so late in the window. He was Arsenal's number 1 target throughout the summer, but they left it late to get it done. But the party's going to start over at the Emirates, I think. A lot of happy Arsenal fans today and happy with their transfer business so far. What do you think Thomas Partey will add to the Arsenal team, Tom?
Well, I think it's hoped that he'll add the dynamism and grit that Arsenal have been lacking in midfield. I think there's absolutely no doubt that they're certainly showing, the guile and the bite that they were missing. They've been showing a little bit more of that since Mikel Arteta came in to take over and replace Unai Emery. But I think it's still been lacking. They were still a little bit short in that area. I have to say I'm a bit sad that it's not worked out for Matteo Guendouzi at Arsenal, because I remember seeing him in Singapore on the pre-season tour, and I thought he could well be the answer to it. I quite liked his tenacity. And then, of course, Lucas Torreira, we thought might be the man to come in and just give them that bit of needle and that bit of nastiness and naughtiness that Arsenal have been lacking over the years. And it hasn't worked out. So, of course, Arsenal fans now hoping that Thomas Partey is the man to do that. I mean, I think it's a very good sign for Arsenal fans that Diego Simeone is so disappointed to lose him. I know a little bit of that is because of as you say, the timing of the deal and the fact it's not left him any time to bring anyone in. But, if you're a midfielder who has been doing it in Diego Simeone's midfield as long as Partey has, then you've got that tenacity and that bite that Simeone's got. So it's only going to be a very positive deal for Arsenal fans.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I think he's made for the Premier League. Partey, the way he plays, he's all action. He loves a tackle. He's decent passer as well, short and long. But yeah, I think his energy will bring something new to this Arsenal team. Obviously, a few disappointments for Arsenal. They didn't get Rumour from Lyon as well, who might have added a bit of creativity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it shows the faith that the Arsenal board have in Arteta to sanction this big money deal on deadline day.
Yeah, I think that is a very good point, that, Pete. He's clearly had the backing of the board this summer. Look, it stood them in good stead that they won the FA Cup. Obviously got off to a good start to this season. I know the Community Shield is only really a pre-season friendly, but it's still, it just kept that winning momentum, kept that feel-good factor. But we saw against Liverpool, that there's still a long way for Arsenal to go. They're 40-plus points they finished behind Liverpool last season. You're not going to close that gap in 1 year. You might not close it in 2 years. So, I think Mikel Arteta will be looking at a 3-year project at the very least. But signings like Thomas Partey is only going to really move the club forward. And I think they've done some good business. I know Willian has not yet hit his stride, but look, we need to give him some time. I know he's not a new player to the Premier League, but he's got to settle in, got to get used to his teammates. And I think with the quality that Arsenal have up front, that he's only going to flourish as well there. So I think Arsenal. We always talk, don't we, about who are the big winners and the big losers in transfer windows, and I think Arsenal will probably reflect that they've done as good a business as anyone this summer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Tom. I think they're definitely one of the biggest winners of this window. But on the flip side of that, they haven't been able to get rid of all the dead wood that they were looking to get rid of. Mesut Ozil, obviously still there. He hasn't kicked a ball for Arteta's team since March time, I think. And they've also the likes of Mustafi, Socrates, Kolasinac, all big earners still at the Emirates right now. And they're not going to be moving anywhere till January, probably at the earliest now. So what do you think that might do to the squad at Arsenal, or you're hoping no disharmony among those players?
Yeah, yeah. If I was an Arsenal fan, there'd be a slight concern about that. But I think if you look at Socrates in particular, who I've spoken to several times in his Arsenal stay, utterly top class, top quality professional. He's not going to be causing any problems for the rest of the squad for Mikel Arteta. Mustafi has been around the block. I don't think he's the sort of player who would do the same. And Mesut Ozil, I mean, it's going to be one of the great. I don't think any of us are ever going to quite work out what happened with Mesut Ozil at Arsenal, because he should have been tailor-made for them. He should have really helped them achieve wonderful things, and it just hasn't worked out for him there. Whether it's been the size of the contract, whether he just isn't the player that perhaps we thought he was when we got glimpses of him playing for Germany and for Real Madrid. But I don't think, again, I don't think players like Ozil, I don't think he's going to cause too many problems. I think, I think he gets on. I wouldn't say that he gets on with everyone in the Arsenal team, but then who does get on with everyone that they work with. But he's got enough friends there that I wouldn't imagine he's going to be causing any problems. So, look, from a financial perspective, of course, Arsenal and the Cronkies would have loved to have shifted some players on. But I think in terms of the team spirit, look, January, the way things are this year, the way the transfer window has been so late, January's only around the corner, isn't it? So we're only talking a couple of months before maybe one or two of them will be shifted on.
Yeah, like you said, just a couple of months, and I'm sure the speculation will begin again on those unwanted
We'll not be
Arsenal
waiting a
players.
couple of months, Pete. We'll be waiting a week or so for this
Oh,
speculation.
exactly. I think we all need a break, don't we? But yeah, nobody's getting a break right now. It's going to come around pretty quickly. And just to remember, we've got that domestic window still open right now as well for trading between Premier League and AFL clubs. So I think there could be a bit of business in that as well. But yeah, moving on now. We don't have a podcast discussion without bringing up Manchester United's transfer strategy. It's in the headlines again today. Obviously, United were the busiest team on deadline day with 4 new signings. Edison Cavani coming in on a free transfer. Alex Telles arriving from Porto in a big money deal. And then 2 younger signings, 2 teenagers, Amad Diallo and Pelistri from Uruguay, who are ones for the future right now. Again, Tom, Man United, they've left it late. It's not the ideal timing to be making signings. A lot of frustrated Manchester United fans right now. But do you think that business they've done on deadline day could prove to be okay?
Time will tell, Pete. I totally understand the frustrations of Manchester United fans. Cavani has been available for 6 weeks. Why have they left it so late to go and get him? I mean, look, he's one of those players that I've always thoroughly enjoyed watching when he's been over in England for Champions League or international matches, and he could be sensational for Manchester United. Could score them a lot of goals, but if I was a Manchester United fan, I think I'd also be looking at it thinking, well, we thought the same of Radamel Falcao when he came over. Andrei Shevchenko when he arrived at Chelsea, we expected big things of him. But perhaps both of those players had left it a little too late before coming to the Premier League. And there's one thing scoring goals in France and another thing scoring goals in the Premier League. And so the jury will be out on that. Of course, his injury record as well. We don't know how many games he's going to be fit enough to play for Manchester United, given that his game time has been a bit limited in the last couple of years. So it's a fascinating one for us as people who don't support Manchester United, because it'll be really interesting to see how it does unfold with him. I think Telles, look, good signing, solid signing. It's a position that they obviously needed to strengthen in. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer knew he wanted a left full back, but again, if you look at the all-round business United have done, they need players for the here and now. I think letting Chris Smalling go, again, very interesting when you look at the fact that Eric Bailly, Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire have had such poor starts to the season. There's no other way of sugarcoating it. I was down at Brighton the weekend before last, and on another day, Brighton, they hit the bar and post and 5 times, I think it was, and on another day, they get the same sort of beating by Brighton that Tottenham gave them just a week later. So, I think Ed Woodward is going to find that there's some serious questions being asked yet again from the supporters, and I think we all know that a club of Manchester United's size, they shouldn't really be scrambling around on deadline day for signings. They should, by rights and by history, have players queuing up to join them. So not good times at Old Trafford.
Yeah, like you said, poor start to the season as well for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side. That humiliating defeat to Tottenham, and then the home defeat to Crystal Palace as well. And like you said, you were at that Brighton game. Probably should have lost that game as well, only for the woodwork coming to the rescue. But obviously they had the summer-long pursuit of Jadon Sancho, which failed to happen, and a lot of people unhappy with United's whole transfer policy. Wasted a lot of time on Sancho, and have they now missed out on their opportunity to get him? Because I think come around next summer, probably going to be a lot of clubs will be looking at Sancho, especially if he has a good season for Dortmund, a good Euros with England next summer. There's going to be a lot of demand for the winger, and if United do struggle this season, miss out in the Champions League, they're unlikely to be able to get Jadon Sancho next summer. So
yeah, I think sometimes clubs can be judged on the players they don't sign. Just as Chris Smalling has got a much better player by not playing for Manchester United, and of course, every time United fail in front of goal or they lack in that little bit of creative spark, people will point to Jadon Sancho. I actually have a little bit of sympathy with Ed Woodward, which I might be in a minority when it comes to that in terms of the Sancho deal, because I know that the coronavirus pandemic and the fallout, or the financial fallout, and the impact it's had left United seriously questioning how much they should be spending this summer, how much they'd got coming in. Obviously, I think it's no secret that United and Tottenham are the two clubs that make the most revenue. I think it's Europe-wide through gate receipts, but certainly in the Premier League. So United are taking a huge financial hit on that. And to be fair, if Ed Woodward has said, look, 90 million is the maximum that we're willing to go to, and Borussia Dortmund wanted 110 million pounds, then absolutely they were right to walk away from the deal. But I think where fans will rightly gripe is that they knew that was going to be Borussia Dortmund's position from the off. And we've been here before, haven't we, with Harry Maguire, when they waited and waited and waited for Leicester to blink, and Leicester weren't for blinking. They knew the value of the player, and they said, look, we don't need to sell him, just as Dortmund don't. So you're absolutely right. There's a position in a year's time where you would imagine Barcelona and one or two of the other big boys, if Sancho has the same sort of impact at Bayern this season as he's had this year, at Borussia Dortmund, as he's had this year, that they don't come for him. So, an interesting one again for Manchester United, but I think it just sums up where the club are, because, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, players like that would be queuing up they'd be beating the door down to get into Old Trafford, and now, Sancho, it was obvious 2 or 3 weeks ago that if it didn't materialise, this move, that he was quite happy to stay in Dortmund.
Yeah, I think so. We could have a frustrated Jadon Sancho who's hoping to get that move as well. Maybe he's not going to be too happy with United's policy to leave it so late and not meet Dortmund's demands. And I think it's an interesting one as well. Real Madrid made no signings this summer for the first time in a long time. Maybe they're saving that money up for a Galactico signing next summer, which Jadon Sancho would obviously fit the bill, or maybe a Kylian Mbappe. So they'll definitely be in the market for those big marquee signings next summer, and that's more competition for Manchester United. Moving on, Everton loving life right now, sitting top of the Premier League. Everything's going. There are songs are in the charts and everything, so it's all good being a toffee right now. But yeah, again, they made a big signing on deadline day with Ben Godfrey coming in from Norwich, an England under-21 international. Impressed in places last season with Norwich in the Premier League, even though it was a tough baptism of fire for him with Norwich struggling in the top flight last year. But what do you make of that signing, Tom, Ben Godfrey?
Yeah, I think it's a good signing. Carlo Ancelotti's had a cracking transfer window, and they didn't really start doing their business until fairly late in the window, did they? Everton, I know one or two other clubs had moved, and there were suggestions in the paper, which I know Everton shot down, but there were suggestions that Carlo was getting a little bit frustrated. But I think to have brought in the mix of players that he's brought in, I really like that mix. James Rodriguez, I think. My jury's a little bit out, even though he looks very good at the start. I want to assess what his contribution has been to Everton's season next May, and see whether he's managed to maintain this initial burst, this initial impact, because there's not really been anything to suggest in the previous years that he can maintain it over the course of the season. So that'll be one to watch. I think Allen looks like a really good signing, a bit of experience there as well, and then Ben Godfrey, as you say, young player, and just brings a bit of youthfulness to the team, bit of exuberance. But he did well for Norwich last year. He was one of probably only 3 or 4 players who sort of emerged from their campaign with his head held high, and I think he'll take them on to the next level. I know they had a look at whether a deal could be done for Kurt Zouma, who obviously spent time on loan there and had formed a good partnership with Michael Keane. But that Frank Lampard had made that clear that he wanted to keep Zouma. And I think Ben Godfrey is a good player, and I think he's a very lucky player now as well, which is a good way to be as a player, because he gets to work with Carlo Ancelotti, who is one of my favourite managers from the Premier League years. Having dealt with him, just a very charming person to deal with, but what a man manager as well. You speak to any of those Chelsea players who played under him, and almost to a man, he's the one that they name as being the favourite manager, the way he looked after the team and the way he treated the team and the way he bonded with his players. And I think you only have to look at what he's doing with Dominic Calvert-Lewin now, and we all know the experience that Carlo's got in the game. I think for Ben Godfrey to be going to work with him at this stage of his career is a real blessing for the player.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Tom. I think probably the best signing Everton have made in years was getting Ancelotti in to become their manager. He's transformed their fortunes in such a short space of time, and like you said, the players love playing for him. He's such a highly respected coach throughout Europe and the world, and things are looking good for Everton. Obviously, there was a departure from Everton on deadline day as well. Theo Walcott making an emotional return to Southampton. He wasn't playing much at Everton, but yeah, it's a nice fairy tale return for Theo. How do you think he will get on back at Southampton?
Yeah, look, I think it's a nice move for him personally, and I don't know whether nice is always the best word, though. That's the problem. I think it's the right word for this instance. But is he going back, and should you ever go back? Gareth Bale's going to find out whether that's the right thing to have done, and I wonder whether Theo what he will get from this move. Look, it's a step down going back to Southampton from Everton, particularly the way Everton are as a football club at the moment. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl is a good manager, though, and I think it's just one of those moves that is, it ticks boxes rather than being truly inspirational signing. I think Southampton have already got players who are fairly impressive on the wings, can turn it on their day. And I think Theo sort of fits into that mould, if you like. We know on his day he can be an absolute quality footballer, whether he's playing as the central striker or whether he's playing out on the wing, where he's ended up being stuck for most of his career. But yeah, I think it's just one of those moves that, as you say, it's a bit romantic, a bit emotional, and Southampton fans will be happy to see him back. He'll be happy to be back on the South Coast, back in familiar surroundings. But is it inspirational? Not really.
No, probably not. Just suits everybody, I think. A nice return to St Mary's for Theo, back down the South Coast for him and his family and everything else, and Everton get one of their higher wage earners off the bill as well. So it's
not totally off the bill, half off the bill.
Half off the bill, yeah. So yeah, half's better than nothing, I suppose. That
right, yeah.
Now, but yeah, I think it's a good deal for all parties involved. Moving on then to one of the teams that have really struggled, not just on the field but off the field, Fulham, who were heavily criticised for their transfer policy last time in the Premier League. Again, we had Tony Khan coming out on Twitter and talking about their transfer troubles after their recent defeat to Villa. And now they had a busy deadline day, bringing in 3 new signings. Ruben Loftus-Cheek coming in on loan from Chelsea, Joachim Andersen, Danish defender from Lyon on loan, and then Tosin Adebayo from Manchester City as well. Tom, do you think these signings will make any improvement to that Fulham squad?
I don't think it can be that much worse at the moment, Pete. So, as a Fulham, if you were a Fulham fan, you'd be hoping they will. I mean, I think Ruben Loftus-Cheek is a good signing. you're looking at him coming in and thinking, well, he's bringing plenty of Premier League experience, but of course, he's still not made 100 appearances for Chelsea. I think it's just under 80 he's made. So he's got a little bit of Premier League experience, but hasn't got too much experience of fighting right down at the bottom. I know he had his loan spell at Crystal Palace, so that might help him a bit. But I think that is a good opportunity for him to go and play some regular first team football, and he'll benefit from it. And I hope that Fulham benefit from it, because they have got some good players in there. Tom Kearney, I really like, really good footballer, really good person to deal with as well from a media perspective, and always like to keep an eye out for how he's doing. But I just worry about Fulham that it'll be too little, too late. They've had I don't think there's probably a better way to put it than a honking start to the season. It's been dire, and we're not just talking about on the field either. When you've got the owner's son coming out and putting his views on Twitter that are clearly not going to sit very well with the manager, that tells me that the trouble's not too far around the corner. And I just wonder if you almost look at Fulham and wonder if there's still a hangover from the season before last, when they were in the Premier League and were relegated. And I know from speaking to one or two of the Fulham players that they felt that the team was changed too much. The squad was too many players were brought in and too late. And the previous time they were up in the Premier League, and it didn't give them time to gel. And I just wonder, even though they've not brought in half as many players this time, whether we're still going to see them going straight back down. I think that's probably a given, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for Fulham. I think the question mark would be over quality and quantity that they've done this summer in the transfer window as well. Still think they're lacking in a lot of areas. Obviously, they'll be hoping to give themselves a chance maybe when the January transfer window comes around, and they can maybe address that situation. But yeah, results are needed for Scott Parker right now, who's probably now one of the big favourites to lose his job, unfortunately, considering how well he's done there.
Which is completely wrong, Pete, given the fact that there was so much doom and gloom around the club when he took over from Claudio Ranieri. As I say, there was the hangover from the two sackings of the managers, and Parker came in and really bonded the team. I mean, you speak to anyone who knows what's going on around Fulham, and they'll tell you that the team has got as good a spirit, or had as good a spirit at the end of last season as any club they'd ever dealt with. So I really hope that whatever happens, even if they do end up going straight back down, which I think is likely, I hope they stick with Scott Parker, because I think, again, look, we talk about these projects. I think long term he could bring them back up again in a year's time.
Yeah, I think definitely managers need time, and as you said, try and build projects. Success doesn't come overnight, and
no.
Scott, like I said, in circumstances, has done a really good job there. But yeah, now the transfer window's closed, we always have a look to see who's the biggest winners and the biggest losers of the transfer window. I know Everton fans always like to shout sometimes, saying that they've won the transfer window, but they can probably claim to it this year after such a good start to the season for them. Who would be your winners then, Tom, of the transfer window, if you're looking at everybody's business?
That's a good question. I mean, for me, Chelsea are going to take some beating. I think Kai Havertz, we saw in glimpses. I was at Stamford Bridge on Saturday for the Palace game, and we saw in glimpses some of the quality that he's going to bring. I think Timo Werner will thoroughly excite supporters. I'm looking forward to watching Thiago Silva. I hope he's still the quality that we've seen from him over the years, and perhaps not disappearing down the other side of the hill quite yet. But I think Frank Lampard will probably claim that.
Looking at the losers end of the transfer window, Tom, obviously the high-profile one we all know about. Who would you go for?
I mean, the high-profile one we've spoken about already. I think there's obviously trouble brewing at Burnley, isn't there? I think we know Sean Dyche has brought in two players, and I think Dale Stephens is quite an astute signing for Burnley. I think he's a good, solid midfielder. But is he going to move the club forward? I don't think he's an upgrade on Jeff Hendrick. Of course, they've lost a lot of experience with Aaron Lennon and Joe Hart going out as well. And just the messages and the noises that have been coming out of Turf Moor over the summer from the boardroom and from the manager's office just makes me think that is probably a relationship that is very, very close to having run its course, and I don't think the fact that they've not done a lot of business will have helped it at all. I quite respect the way Burnley do their business. You know, they've never pretended to be anything other than what they are. They've never overshot, they've never overspent and put the club in any sort of peril in recent years, as so many clubs have, and yet they've still managed to achieve and stay in the Premier League. But I think Sean Dyche will be looking at it and saying, well, hang on a minute, you know, I've kept you in the Premier League for so many years, I've brought you back to the Premier League, and then we've kept you there for so many years, and he'll be saying, why aren't you now backing me? So it's one of those stories one of those arguments that you can see both sides of, actually, and I know Burnley fans will probably side with the manager and they'll want to see money spent, but you know, it is so uncertain at the moment. There are so many clubs worried about their futures that actually you only have to look back at examples that we've had in the you know, I was going to say recent past, but 20 years ago now. When you look at Leeds fall from grace, you know, why would Burnley put themselves in that position when they're nowhere near as big a club as Leeds traditionally? So I can totally understand it from the board's side of it.
Yeah, I think Sean Dyche probably a victim of his own success, considering what he does with what he's got to work with there at Burnley. Small transfer budget, but he gets the best out of those players and always exceed expectations with top half finishes and everything else. But yeah, like you said, Tom, one to keep an eye on. For me, probably out of a few concerns, West Brom as well, maybe losers in this transfer market. Haven't spent a lot, made a couple of the signings that were there on loan last season permanent, with Mateus Pereira and obviously Greedy Diangana cost them quite a bit as well. But I think Slaven Bilic not been too happy, not getting a striker in and maybe a defender or two. So again, probably Burnley, West Brom will be the losers for me, along with Manchester United, as we've discussed before as well. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking again in a couple of months about who's the winners and losers of the transfer market. But thanks for joining us today, Tom, on this latest episode of the Rumour Review with Odds Changer. It's only a few weeks now until it all starts again, the speculation and all the jazz that goes with the transfer window. But looking forward to that as well. But thanks for your insight, Tom. That was brilliant.
Thanks for having me, Pete. Much appreciated.